Hello, and welcome back to the Love and Meaning podcast, which is all about falling in love with your life by creating the meaning in your life through intention. I'm your host, Christelle Robinson Tiedemann. In the Love and Meaning podcast, I share through my own personal experience. My focus is on self-discovery and becoming the truest, most aligned version of yourself and showing up in your life at your highest frequency in order to magnetize living the life of your absolute dreams. And when I say highest frequency, this doesn't mean positivity. I mean truth and purposefulness and authenticity, which is truly your soul's alignment and living out your soul's divine mission here on planet. I have a strong passion for embodiment and implementation because my whole love of inner work, my whole love of spirituality, self-discovery is for the difference that it made in my life. Practically, we can sit and talk and philosophize about plenty of things. I love doing that. Like, I can just talk about interesting topics for days on end. But when it comes down to it, in terms of like what I'm here and committed to doing, is to embodying change in my own life and then assisting others, facilitating change for others in their own lives. It doesn't really mean much if it's not actually changing your life. This is genuinely how I feel. And so today, I want to talk to a very special group of people who I encounter on a very regular basis, who are people that are drawn to me. I'm speaking to the intellectual. And I'm just going to play you guys a voice note because I have a 9-to-5 job. It doesn't really allow for me to be able to record at any time, though that is ideally what I would like to do and is what I'll definitely be doing soon enough. But I just kind of get these waves of like, oof, I need to talk about this. Like, I just need to talk about this. And it usually happens because I've encountered a number of people, conversations I've had that week. Like, it shows up to me through my lived experience that this is something I need to share about. Like, I'm ready to do a little rant about it. And so I often grab my voice notes and just let it out so that I can come back to it later. And I actually just want to play for you the way that this came out in the voice note, because I just think it's just, I love how fluid it just kind of like came out in the deepest of truth of it, and then I'll expand upon it for the rest of the episode. So I'm going to start playing. I might pause in between and like interject, but I'm going to start playing for you this voice note that I created for myself to expand upon later, that is speaking to the intellectual. Okay, here we go. I want to speak to my intellectuals for a minute because I see you. I see you. I have so many of this type of people in my life. I don't know if it's simply because of my career, and I think there's a larger portion of us that are, educated, secondary education and stuff like that. But this one's for the smarty pantses, okay? This is all about your ability to explain. You're actually quite good at contemplation. And you will probably explain to me better than I could ever say exactly what happened, what your motivations are, where your trauma is playing a role. Like, you have it so down in the what is happening. Like, you analyze the shit out of this back to front to back. And then there's the integration. And I see you. And this is where you have so much trouble, is moving into now
what do you do with this information? What do you do with this information? Too often, we're too smart for our own good. We like the smart part. The smart part is, look at how I can explain to you what has happened. To a certain degree, it would almost be better if we couldn't explain it. Let's say we couldn't find the words, but we knew how to integrate change or the new thing into our lives. And this is where we really fall behind and have trouble and find ourselves in similar situations again, or over and over again, which is not a terrible thing. So this isn't that it's awful that we learn from contrast, or we learn from getting it right, but that's not the issue.
Excuse my yawn.
You're learning it however many ways that you want to. But I'm saying this because I think there's a stalling, or the process can be sped up if you want it to be sped up, by us thinking that we're actually doing the work by doing just the analyzing part, by doing just the identification part. I think we think we've done the work now. We've nailed it. We think that this is the part that really needs our attention. And it's not. It's actually not the part that needs our attention. So we end up doing the same thing over and over again. Or the problem just lingers. You might not actually find yourself doing it. You might be kind of in a holding pattern where you just don't expose yourself to the situation that can trigger a repeat of those previous actions. You're in a very smart holding pattern. So if you want to move into the integration, we have to do something after the identifying part. After the identification part, it's now to put things into action. And this is where it can be really scary for the intellectual, because we don't want to move out of our head. We don't want to move out of our head space. This is where we thrive. But one place that you definitely can't thrive in your head is relationships. And this is where I see this come up the most, is relationship stuff. Often you'll nail every other area of your life, and then when it comes to relationships, this is where the challenge is. And so at some point, we have to actually move into the doing. And the thing with the doing that I realize is the thing that the intellectual has a hard time with is it's messy. It's not prescripted. It cannot be entirely planned out, and it can't just be delivered in a neat little package. It actually involves you trying things, falling on your face, and trying something else. Not trying something, it didn't work out, and then staying far away now because we're afraid of messing up. Or when we do it, we throw all caution to the wind and then end up in the same situation. It's like taking what we've learned and now actually implementing change. So this is a purposefully messy stage, not an accidentally messy stage. We are messy by accident all the time. What we aren't is messy on purpose. And the thing is our messy on purpose is a much more functional, practical, useful messy than the one by accident, the one that really actually scars us and leaves, a long impact.
All right, so I apologize for the hot mess of background noise there, but I didn't even want to attempt to restate it. Like, this is how the thought came out so raw, and I love it. I love it, I love it, I love it, because it's real, and I see it all the time. So this episode is for all my intellectuals, and apparently I am one too, because I was saying we the whole time. I love you guys, and I'm calling you out today because I've seen this pattern for so long, and for some reason it only just hit me in the face, okay, enough is enough. I see what you're doing. We're going to move on to the next stage. This is what we're going to do. And it's just as I stated it there. The thing with the intellectual is I think that there's been so much reward for being able to explain something really, really well, right? So there's this internal kind of gratification or pat on the back that comes with, well, if I can deliver this in a really succinct way and a well-analyzed way, I gain the point. And you do. And the thing is, you might even gain the point from your therapist. And this is not, I'm not calling out therapy and saying it's a waste of time. That's not what I'm saying here. What I want to say is that I've seen so many of these individuals be in therapy for sometimes decades, over a decade, just under a decade, and in very much the same place. And the therapist as well is giving them kind of like the accolade of like, wow, you really did a great job analyzing that. So well said, so well. And now what? And now what though? So you know exactly what happened there. How is this going to serve you? So I think I kept saying we is because I know the feeling of really wanting to just have that like, good job, good job. And we've gotten really used to good job by doing good schoolwork or, great presentation, whatever it is, like just being able to use our mind to present a very well thought out argument or a theory. We're really great at being theoretical. And at the end of the day, none of this really matters unless it's making a difference in our life. So I'm calling out the intellectual today because you have such a strong potential for change, just like we all have a potential for change. You have the ability to make changes in your life that you want to see. And I think one of the invisible blocks that exist is thinking that because you explained yourself, you've made the change. So my invitation is to, because this is all about self-work. This is inner work. This is something that you're going to have to do with yourself. This is not necessarily something that someone is going to tell you. Often people get really blindsided or confused or even intimidated by your very eloquent way of explaining your problems. So this is going to have to be an inside job. So if you're listening to this and you hear yourself being described, my invitation to you is to not give yourself that accolade or that pat on the back that tells you this is done now. I want you to give yourself a pat on the back and say like, okay, I've done step 1. Now we're moving on to step 2. There has to be an action involved. There has to be an action involved with this. It started out in the mind. We've done the mind work. Now it's time for the body work. And so what that looks like is the real life version of you making a change in your life, seeing a movement with this problem, seeing some sort of different approach to whatever the issue is that usually tends to be repeated in our lives. Okay? So what I want you to do is I want you to get brave. I want you to move out of your safe zone. Our mind is our safe zone. Like what I was saying at the end of that voice note, when I said, I think this really comes down to this fear of getting messy. But the thing is that you actually do get messy. It's just, it was an unplanned messy. Oftentimes, ending up in the same situation as you were before is because it felt safe. There is a lot of self-protection. There is a lot of doing what I feel accomplished in. There is a lot of, I got to do what I know and I need to control this. And so I know that if you're listening to this, you'll understand exactly what I mean and you can fill it in with your own examples. Even when, let's say we use relationships and it's choosing a person that on one level you might be very aware of is just not the right person for what it is that you want. There's another part of you that feels able to control the situation because you're familiar with it. And more than anything, there is this strong safety that is necessary in your mind. And your very strong intellect and the strong reliance on mind and on reason and on logic tricks you into thinking, I'll be able to figure this one out this time, you know? So what I want you to do is to actively choose to move out of the familiar and get brave. And getting brave really looks like just doing something that is different than you've done before. It means being okay that this is an unknown. It means I have no idea how this is going to turn out. Sometimes, my dear intellectuals, there is a preference for knowing that this isn't going to work out, but I simply know the way it's going to go versus doing something that is completely new. I know you know that's true. And that self-awareness of like, I know what I'm doing right now. A little bit of me can't believe I'm doing it, but I know what I'm doing right now. Oddly enough, is self-soothing you. It's soothing you because it's known. Way too much emphasis is being placed on what's known. This is a time to embrace the unknown. I'm speaking to a different type of person. I might have a completely different message, but I really am speaking to my really mind-heavy person, you know, who really thinks they have like a very strong handle on being able to diagnose life, even other people and stuff like that. And you probably are very good at it. So I'm not making fun of you. Like, you really are very good at it. And I mean it, that you are really freaking good at explaining to me exactly how that thing that just blew up in your face happened and your own insights into like what brought you there. It's the now moving into the place of like, we're going to try our best to have a different outcome next time. And that takes unknown, embracing the unknown. This is what I know, but there's a whole lot that I don't know. And it's time for me to move towards the I don't know because the I know hasn't been helping me. So that's the first thing that I want you to do. And this is kind of similar to the Friday Night Live dive that I had a couple weeks ago. And that was for the episode all about making decisions. You can go to my YouTube. The handle is @coachingwithcreate, or you can search my name, Christelle Robinson Tiedemann. And on my YouTube page, I have a weekly live every Friday, 6 p.m. EST, EDT. And we go deep on the topic of the podcast for that week. So the podcast drops every Monday. Friday Night Live Dive happens every Friday. So it is a live where we deep dive into the topic. And that week's episode was all about making decisions. And so that Friday Night Live Dive, I broke down some things that I have found that are really helpful when it comes to learning how to make your own decisions. And one of the things was get brave. Get brave. Too much comfort. There really is just simply too much comfort. We get too much comfort from our mind. So much discomfort sitting in our bodies, sitting in our feelings, sitting in our bodies, sitting in vibration, really recognizing our frequency that we're emitting, really reading the frequency of another person. The intellectual, you are the same person who, you will feel for no reason all the red flags from that person sitting in front of you, and then tell yourself, well, that's ridiculous because, they have this job and they make this much money and they look like this. This is the way we over rely on our mind. So it really takes getting brave and moving out of what is the comfort zone, which is really relying on this thing that has given us praise and accolades and pats on the back our whole life. As I said in the voice note, you're probably nailing most aspects of your life and also probably struggling with relationships. And it's because none of these rules apply. None of these rules apply. You don't get a raise for it. You don't get an award for it. You don't get a bunch of people looking up to you saying, wow, amazing for it. No, you get another person looking at you completely not understanding, or putting you in situations which aren't great for you, which push your boundaries, blah, 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 and you just find yourself at a loss. So it's time to get brave, and it's time to get a little bit messy. And let me tell you what I mean when I say it's time to get messy. Mindset work can only take you so far. So when I say get messy, and don't get me wrong, I love mindset work. Mindset work is a huge portion of what I do with clients, and it's a huge aspect of what I've done with the work for myself. But at a certain point, we need to move out of the mind and into the body, because we are whole beings, and the change that we're looking for isn't a whole change that is required. I don't just want you to understand what's going on. We want the results. So get messy means we're identifying what it is the desired outcome is. What is it that you want to achieve in your life? And we're going to take action and move towards it. So, for example, if this is, I'm looking for my dream partner, and you have you're able to analyze all the reasons for why you're unable to move into the dating stage, because you've intellectualized it, you've analyzed it, you know all the things holding you back. The next step is going on the dates. And when the anxiety comes up, when the panic comes up, when the fear comes up, when the thoughts telling you no, 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 danger, danger come up, you're able to sit and soothe your body. You're able to elicit the emotions that make you feel uncomfortable and do something different than you've done before. So this is learning to self-soothe. This is learning emotional regulation. This is learning how to actually process emotions. And it takes practice. It's one thing to sit and talk about it, but until you actually sit with the feelings, this is a completely foreign thing. I can tell you, even as someone who's practiced for a while now in sitting and processing my emotions, and sometimes I still I'll know for days where I'm like, okay, Chriselle, you need to do some breath work. I feel the trapped energy in my body, and I still will put it off and put it off and put it off and put it off. Why? It's so easy to continue in the mode that you're in, and there is just something about allowing ourselves to be uncontrolled, just free. In somatic breath work, you're just free. You scream. You fully confront everything that's inside of you. And it is the part that takes the most courage. And so moving into actually holding yourself through these feelings that come up is messy. It's the next step. It's the sitting through when you're on that date and you have all of these thoughts coming in, all of these limiting beliefs come up, and you're able to sit with yourself and be on this date and self-soothe afterwards, and really just allow yourself to move through the entire uncomfortable process all the way until the part where it doesn't feel so uncomfortable anymore. Trying something new, trying a different way of doing things. So if this is a matter of like communication is the things that we want to work on. I can tell you that when I first started working on communication, the big area that I wanted to work on was with my husband. And do you know how many times I would say to myself, okay, so I know how we're going to communicate this. I know, I have it down. You know what I mean? I've practiced like with myself, and I really am going to use like really loving communication. Most of the communication work that I have learned is based off of nonviolent communication. Excellent book. I recommend it to anybody to read. And there are, non-violent ways to communicate that we are not really taught regularly in society. But it's much more effective for establishing a loving relationship with people and really communicating in a way that expresses to them what you truly want to express, and also expresses to them that you care about them through your communication. And so, I'm like, okay, I know what I'm going to do. Go to have that conversation. Don't say this thing. Say that exact thing I said I wasn't going to say. Like, do you know how many times? Okay, don't. You're not going to say it. Don't say that. Boom, I say it. Like I'm watching myself and I'm like, I just said, don't say it. I went through that like repeatedly so many times. This was uncomfortable. This is uncomfortable. It is challenging. It would be so much easier to just be like, ugh, he should just get what I mean. So I'll just say it any old way that I usually communicate. That's just the way that I am. Okay. Like, don't you know that's just the way that I am? Can't you just accept me for who I am? I could do that. And I could probably give him some highly intellectual explanation for why he should be able to accept me for the way that I am and just lazily communicate in an unloving way. Could do that. Or I could continue to strive towards my own personal goal of being a great communicator. And that means continuously messing up until I don't. It's messy. And then the conversation that happens with myself or with my coach afterwards is very much about my feelings and how uncomfortable it was for me to sit with that. And so I just relieved my own discomfort by saying the same old thing as before, and breathing through it and then trying again and being really proud of myself and sitting in the discomfort of doing something new, feeling awkward, feeling like he thinks I'm being weird or whatever it is, all of that. It's messy, it's not a lovely summed up explanation. It's the real doing. It's the real doing. It's the real action of change. But this is how we make change. This is how change comes. And it's so interesting when you fast forward months later, it's like, holy crap, I can't believe I did that. How the heck did I do that? It just feels so weird in the beginning and while you're practicing, and then you reach a point where it becomes your natural, but you have to get messy until you get there. Getting messy looks like if you are the person who has a pattern of dating the same kind of person over and over again because of trauma bonding, because, for example, if you think about it, it's just the same issues that you have with your father and the same issues that you're finding with your partners. And it's like a recreation of it. And that feels like comfort. That is what love has looked like for you subconsciously for your whole life. And so getting messy is when you're deciding to date people in a different way, people that you wouldn't date, actually creating a love list of what are the values that you're looking for in a partner and actually dating people with those values. And then you go on the date. And when you're on the date and you don't feel that those butterflies and sparks in your stomach that you're used to, and that indicate to you, well, oh, I can't really like this person then because I don't feel that. Sitting through that date, giving that person the time of day, recognizing, oh, like we did have a good time, realizing, and then sitting with yourself afterwards, all the thoughts that came up, like where you're missing that spark and that feeling, and when this person feels boring to you because you don't have that, sitting with that when it comes up. Wow, okay, I really am reliant on that feeling. What is underneath that feeling? Why? And going into it, this is the part where you open yourself up to what is actually underneath all of these motivations, right? And you sit with that feeling of discomfort. Well, did you have a good time? Yeah, I mean, I guess I did have a good time. Do you find the person attractive? Yeah, I just don't feel the thing. Okay, they are attractive, still on your love list. Okay, all right, so you're going on a second date. And going on that second date and then realizing like, oh, wow, they're like funny. I really enjoyed that. That was funny. And there's still none of this like crazy butterfly stuff in my stomach. And then sitting with all the feelings that come up. Oftentimes, a lot of anxiety comes up. Like, maybe they don't find me attractive if I don't have those feelings. And what will the person be thinking about me? Well, a lot of times things will come up like insecurities will come up like, oh, well, I guess I realized that I need to feel a little bit better than that person. I need that person to be a little bit of a mess because it actually makes me feel more secure to feel like I'm better than them in some way. This person feels like my match. Now I'm feeling a little bit insecure. Ooh, insecurity is coming up. Okay, let's sit with that. Let's go into that. It's messy. This is step by step how it goes. And you're still going on these dates. It's like, wow, this seems like a lot. you know? And then maybe by date 3 or date 4, you just realize, like, I actually enjoy this person's company. This is so interesting. And then you start to be able to actually bring those insights that you're able to intellectualize so well into your body and realize the signals that your body is giving you versus what your mind is giving you. And then sit with the feelings that come up with that. This is the work. This is what the work actually looks like. And I highly recommend working with a coach throughout this process, or with a therapist, work with a therapist throughout this process. Having support, one way or another, I highly recommend having support. And this is where you see change. I can tell you, I've witnessed it time and time again. You get to the other side. You can, if you are committed to the work, and if you really are, you learn to soothe. You learn to hold your inner child and communicate with your inner child as that younger version of yourself confronts what you really truly believe to be true all of this time. It's a very beautiful process, but it's also a scary process, and it's a messy process. And it is an extremely tough one for the intellectuals out there. One of the tough things for me when I was in the dating process, I was doing this work myself and learning to date in a completely new and healthy way, was no longer needing to be the one who's right, like the right one in the relationship, like the one who doesn't mess up, all the time. And kind of actually choosing people who were a good match for me in terms of they're not going to mess up and give me that ability to be like, better than. I think as a child, I felt like I made so many mistakes. 6 line here, so 3 line until the age of 30, plus I had ADHD. I felt like I was constantly in trouble. I was constantly making mistakes. And the way that this was internalized as I got older, I never wanted to be in that position. And so my partner, the people that I was choosing, be the ones who were always messing up. You know, I always got to be the good guy in these scenarios, and I was subconsciously creating that. And then dating in a new way and really choosing people intentionally. And when having signs, you know, for example, that this person might not be up to the standard that I'm interested in, moving on from that relationship. Dating in that new way, guess what? I had to confront that sometimes I messed up. When you're not dating someone who's, you know, just messing up all the time, then it gets to be an equal plane. And that means I mess up sometimes. And guess what happens when you mess up? You have to apologize. So I was confronted with the part of me that did not like apologizing. That was big. That took a lot of work. That took a lot of self-reflection. It took a lot of confronting my own demons and sitting with so much tension in my body, so much like physical response in my body, like triggers, you know, like I super triggered. And processing my emotions. I started doing breath work and processing all the pent up energy in my body. And I started to sit with myself, have conversations with myself. I did a lot of IFS work, so internal family system parts work, speaking to the part of me that came up to protect myself whenever I felt like if I had to apologize, I was being attacked. And be able to recognize that this is a normal aspect of relationships. I really appreciate it when people apologize to me. It is okay. What this all comes down to is that you are allowed to make mistakes. And it doesn't mean that you're a horrible person. It doesn't mean that you're failing at life. It just means that you're human. So you get to apologize and make mistakes and be human and still be a wonderful person. You get to do all of those things. And you get to do them in a relationship. I had to carry myself through that. That was messy. And very, very, very freaking worth it. Very worth it. And then realizing, wow, it is such a wonderful thing to be able to take responsibility for myself and my relationships. And it is something I so deeply appreciate that my partner is able to do the same. It feels really freaking good. And it was worth every second of discomfort. So this is my special call out. I hope I really did disclaim it in the beginning. That this is a bit of a call out, but it's coming from a place of love. It's coming from a place of knowing and personal experience. I feel like sometimes we really self-sabotage with our just too smart for our own goodness, you know? I want us to move out of just being able to explain everything away in such a nice little package and then repeatedly doing the same thing. It's time to get willing to get messy. It's time to like go inside. It's time to do the mindset work and do the emotional work. It's time to do both. It's time to do both. And so many amazing things reside on the other side. If this is something that really intrigues you in listening, if you know that this is you and you feel ready to carry yourself through this and see these actual changes, this is a great thing to work on in coaching. My coaching packages are available. There's a link available in the show notes, and you can also find the information in my bio on my Instagram at Coaching with Cree. And I would absolutely love to work with you as someone who's been there, someone who's been through all this. It is scary and uncomfortable, and you get through it. You do get through it. And then we get to really just have the ability to be well-rounded, to have that balance, to have these really beautiful intellectual minds, as well as compassion and understanding and reciprocity in relationships when you have the emotional intelligence, the emotional mastery, the emotional awareness. Alrighty. I love you all. I'm wishing you a wonderful week. Come hang out with me on Friday Night Live Dive, and we can dive much deeper into this. Bring your questions, bring your comments. Put your questions and your comments right here underneath the episode. And if you can't make it to the live, I can cover the questions on Friday Night Live Dive for you, and you can catch the replay. However you'd like to do it. I would love to see you. I'd love to hang out with you. I'm wishing you such a wonderful week. Until next time, bye.